Well, welcome to another behind the scenes episode. I don't know, this is episode blah blah of the video which was called blah blah, and we'll be taking a very intensive look at the little car explosion that was done for this video, and this car explosion was done on a very tiny scale. Maybe you'll learn something from my technique here and maybe you won't, and because we're dealing with the YouTube network, there are some details that I can't even go near. Before I finalise anything that I'm working with, I always do a bit of a line-up with the camera. I've got my little custom car in there and a little custom figure that looks just like the Fat controller, and we'll be looking at the details behind those. But also this set piece is very simple. It's just a T configuration, so it's a T road and there's little buildings built around and a few other little bits and pieces which tie into the story. Well, I'll ping off the Fat controller first. And the Fat controller I used in the car was the same one that you get in the Take and Play Fat controller's car. I actually used 3 different scales of Fat controller, but let's just concentrate on the one I built for this car explosion. The Take and Play Fat controller's car Fat controller comes without legs. So I had to find another figure of the same scale where I could take the legs off and transplant them over to the Fat controller. Hopefully a picture tells 1,000 words here. I also needed posable arms, so the arms were carefully cut off, and I used small amounts of black tack to reattach the arms in the way I wanted. Okay, let's talk about the car that I used. And it had to be a special sort of car. It had to be the right scale, it had to be the right style, and it had to be a car which had a lot of detail, and one of those cars where you can open the doors and you can look inside and there's all bits and bobs. You can open up the bonnet or the hood and there was all stuff inside there as well. I ended up finding a really nice looking car. I have forgotten the brand of this car and the style that it is. I'm sure someone out there will inform me. And in the end, this car was a perfect choice. I had to pull it apart, repaint it, and I also had to do some pyro testing to see how I could throw this car about. Three, two, one. So the stage is almost set and we're ready to blow things up, but there was another important component to this piece, and that's a bit of graffiti on the wall. It was a message from the Mad Bomber to the Fat controller, and I needed to make a number of these. There was one hero wall and there were 2 others which were set up for the explosion. They were basically photocopies of the hero wall. I needed these photocopied walls because I knew when the car blew up, that wall was going to get burnt by the fireball from the little car explosion. And maybe we'll take a bit of a look around the set, and I use shellac a lot to knock things down or make them look a bit dirty. I think a long time ago I spoke about shellac and how I used it, but doing this extra bit of detailing really brings this little tiny set to life. Maybe you'll see components from things you know I've used as dressing around the set. Maybe there's a shell of duck laying around somewhere. But all in all, it's very basic scenery dressing and model making which has made this little set piece. There's really nothing that difficult to this at all. One of my biggest friends in the assembly of all this is hot melt glue. And as always, and you know what I'm about to say, the devil is in the detail. Well, before I went in to blow up that little car, there was a number of shots I had to do. There was the Fat controller's car driving to its parking spot, which was ultimately boring to watch. But there was also this other funny shot of me trying to get the look of the Fat controller walking away from his car. And this became a very difficult shot to get because he always looked funny when he was walking. I had him attached to a piece of aluminium, I think, and to get this walk without it looking silly was almost impossible. There's a real fine art to puppeteering that I've never really grasped hold of, and that's why those people who do puppeteering earn the big dollars. 3, 2, 1. And now maybe if we go and look at me redressing to do a second take of the car explosion, you'll see why I made those other walls. So I've got my pyro charge set, and there were actually 2 charges. There's one to lift the car and one for the fireball. And there's a bit of redressing to do, take a footpath away, take the wall away, paint around the road again and make it look clean. But I don't have to go too crazy with the redressing because when I cut into this scene, you won't notice that the car's already been through one take. Your eye won't register that the car's not pristine. And that's very much the same way a magician works when he's fooling you with his tricks. And as you can see, the car has been pulled apart, so when that pyro charge goes off, hopefully we'll see parts of the car disassembling. And this is the exact same method that you would use if you were blowing up a real car for a real film. 3, 2, 1. Well, as you just saw, no matter how well planned you think your little car explosion is going to be, sometimes the car stays intact, and that's why we need to do an aftermath shot. And in exactly the same way that I blew up the bridge, I come in and I dress the car all broken up, laying around the crater hole where the pyro charges were. In reality, if it was high explosives blowing up a real car, there would be pieces of car strewn all around the streets. In the confined nerdiness of my little film, all the debris is neatly strewn around the small area where the car exploded. And just like the bridge explosion, I let off a pyro charge within this, and it gives me something to cut into to see the blown up car looking really cool. Well, let's get into Pyro Frenzy mode and take a look at all the camera angles of that little car getting blown to smithereens. You better pull your head in, fat controller. 3, 2, 1. Three, two, one. 3, 2, 1. Three, two, one. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. There's another really important shot to give you the fear that the fat controller nearly got taken out by that explosion, and that's a shot where he dives into the bushes with some of my worst puppeteering efforts ever. And to make it look like he was near the fireball, I had a torch with some orange gel, light gel, on the lens, so it was giving off a very orange light, which looks like the fireball. I wasn't letting off a fireball, it was just using the torch as a light, and that's called interactive lighting, a technical name there. And then he rolls around a bit and moves. Thank goodness he's still alive. And he goes back and he surveys the damage. And all the time that smoke, which is coming from the wreckage, is smoke sack. And like, I make smoke sack myself. I wish I could show you how to make it, but I can't, because there'd be people on YouTube who would pull my account down in an instant. Such is the nature of YouTube today. And you know, like I keep saying, the very fine art of miniature pyrotechnics is going to get lost if we keep treating it like a criminal offence. I'll stop ranting. I think there was meant to be some very important things said by the fat controller once he realised how close he was to being wiped out. And I think he quizzes the static traction engine in the park, because he would have been witness to the person who wrote "Time's Up" on the wall. But hey, I can't tell you too much of a secret story, can I? And I think at the end I had a little shot of a Ertl fire engine rolling in, because someone has to turn up to put out the fire. You can't have no fire brigade at all, can you? You know, now I look back on this, I was really happy with this scene, and it's just such a shame I can't go ahead and finish it. I hope I've stripped this back enough to show you that there's nothing too complex going on here at all. That's something I feel which is really important to do. And hopefully by showing you this, I can empower you to keeping alive the spirit of using miniatures to make little films. Television shows like Thunderbirds, Space 1999 and UFO had a huge impact on me. Well, I better finish up now, and if you lasted to the final few seconds of this video, as always, I'll thank you. Goodbye now.